So it's funny. I was just mentioning the other day, and I fucking forget every time to ask the guests on their way out to sign the wall. So I got to post it here to remind me. Maybe you can help me remember. But I always am trying to like assign some sort of special value to the episode number with the guest. And you wound up being 23, which I guess where I go is Jordan, and you have Chicago ties. So,
Gotcha.
George Clarke, Badass Records. Welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Good to have a cold one with you.
Nice to have a little refreshing beverage after a long day.
What is that? A quirk?
It's a quirk. A little hard quirk.
And is that one of those like 12ers where there's different flavors in there? And
No, I just went for the straight cherry blossom.
oh, okay. I've been digging the ranch waters after a dad-daughter float trip in Arkansas. Nice and easy, refreshing. Got a little 4% in there.
I'd have to say I'm a seltzer fan. I've been drinking them since
Dude,
before they got popular.
I mean,
think, my sister probably got me on the White Claw revolution, but I've branched out since then.
I don't remember. I think, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, but we went to a couple shows, and it was either I was in line with you or I was going to make a run, and you're like, grab me, and you said, like, why? I was like, what? Okay, and I think I ended up getting one for myself and being like,
This isn't bad. Yeah, this isn't too bad.
kind of washes the balloony nitrous-y taste out of my mouth.
Well, I mean, honestly, a lot of times for me, it's like either getting out of work or even at a show or something. It's like if you're hot and
Yeah.
you're just, I don't want to drink a 9% IPA all the time. You know what I mean? So
Fuck, I'm fresh off of a long Modelo Especial streak, and it's like I was like, oh my god, these are. But then I just blast through them. And it's like I feel gross after drinking 4 beers or whatever. But always looking for something on the lean and refreshing side.
yeah,
So we were talking dogs just a few minutes ago and mentioned your boy. He's got to be rolling up on 1, right?
birthday is in about what day is today? 12th, 13th,
12th, yeah.
His birthday's in about 8-9 days.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we go back, I know it doesn't sound that long in the scheme of things, but 11 years, probably, right around, like, come September, October. Maybe it's 10, because I'll be, I think it's right at 10. But anyway, point being,
might be 12. I don't know.
I'm my work anniversary will be 9 this September,
Okay.
which means I think 10 for you and I.
Okay. Yeah.
But point being, around that time, my firstborn was roughly the age that your boy is now. And I mean, it's first of all weird that was 10 years ago. Second of all, weird that you're a father. and
Nobody saw that coming.
I mean, the Geo Clarke is a dad. And we can be expecting number 2 when?
Not anytime soon with the current Supreme Court.
Oh my God, man.
I don't think I'd want to have to make that decision for between my significant other and her life and if there was any kind of pregnancy issues or anything like that, try to have to make that decision. I don't think that's a decision anybody should have to make. So
Right. My next door neighbors are restaurateurs in the same neighborhood that you are. And I didn't realize this until about a year. They just had their second. And about a year ago when they reached the time that it was appropriate to be public with the news, he put up a post saying that they had not been able to conceive naturally. And so they whatever, found a donor and harvested some eggs of hers, but they did a big batch, and so this baby that they just had is a legit, you know, sibling. I mean, because it's the same donor and it's mom's eggs, and so there's still some at the lab or whatever. And he just the other day was like, we don't know now, like what will become of those. Like, it's technically a life. Will somebody say, okay, we gotta get these grown and out into the, you know what I mean? Like, I never in a million years even considered that tiny detail of the whole mess, but
Yeah.
it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So you're born and raised KC, right?
Correct. Yeah.
You did Rockhurst, and then did you go to college in Chicago?
I went to school up at Loyola University.
Loyola.
Yeah.
That's right. And then you have a younger sister?
I've got an older and a younger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And one of them is one of them in St. Louis?
One's outside of St. Louis, and then one's here in Kansas City still.
Okay. And do they both have kids?
Oh, yeah. They both have 3 apiece, I believe.
Okay. We're outside of St. Louis.
I want to say she's in Wentzville.
Okay.
I don't really.
I see that sign on I-70.
She's like in the western suburbs.
Okay.
She's an hour outside the city.
Okay.
In some suburb.
Gotcha.
So.
And you're where did I met your dad at the rental car place right by your house, right?
Oh, it's not there anymore. Yeah,
Oh, it's not?
No, they closed it down finally.
What a train
like
wreck.
a year ago.
That place. Remember that whole ordeal was just like super weird, and the people working there were. Anyway, your folks are both still around, right?
Yes, sir.
And together.
Oh yeah.
And how did they meet?
I think they met at Kelly's bar actually.
Really?
Yeah, there's an old. I can't remember what all went down, but they met at Kelly's, and so there's always been a old picture of an artist that did some drawing, like some real like crazy abstract drawing of Kelly's bar in Westport, and it's been hanging in my parents' house since I was a kid. So
totally random.
I exist because of the oldest bar in Kansas City.
Right. Were they both out with friends, or was it a setup situation, or who knows?
I don't remember. Yeah.
And where are they still in the same house that you grew up in?
No. We didn't move around too much, but they moved probably like 4 blocks away from the house I primarily grew up in.
Okay. And that's where they are now?
Yeah. So they live like in Leawood at like 123rd and State Line.
Okay. And do you remember, were they playing music when you were growing up?
Yeah, I always grew up with like I remember like a heavy dose of like Doobie Brothers.
Nice.
Traffic.
Ooh.
I remember a lot of like Spyro Gyra. That was the other one.
No kidding?
That was the other one. Like I remember like the song Morning Dance is kind of like always been a favorite song of mine, and like kind of ingrained in my memory because that was like my dad's biggest favorite band was Spyro Gyra.
I'm going to have to give that a listen because I couldn't even like begin to describe their sound. Like, I don't know.
It's kind of like I don't know, maybe early jazz fusion type stuff, you know?
Wow.
And very like it was jazzy, but it was also really, some of it was really upbeat, and a lot of percussion, but more like island style percussion.
Ooh.
Almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, on certain things, and I don't know. I just kind of remember. At least that Morning Dance song, that was the one that always just kind of stuck out to me, and they just he just always was playing Spyro Gyra, and my dad played in a bunch of bands.
Oh, really?
Until his 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now
I think he quit them it's like mid to late 20s, but he played in bands in high school and played the piano and stuff like that.
So, I mean, I think that you've just answered my question, but whenever I hear that somebody is like pretty into jazz or really into jazz, like first thing that comes to mind is that person is probably pretty smart. Would you consider your dad a smart dude?
Yeah, I'd say he was. Yeah, I mean he's a math guy and
Okay, yeah, right.
he's, you know, an accountant for most of his life, but you know, he's always he's always been very mechanically minded and mathematically minded and stuff like that, and I think, you know, that laid a lot of the groundwork to him playing music and
Sure.
stuff like that too.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a student of jazz or like listened to a lot of jazz. I don't necessarily like. There's some offshoots of jazz, like, you know, it's more funky, acid jazz kind of groovy type stuff that is more appealing to me. I don't necessarily get into traditional jazz, but not because I don't like it. I just think that I didn't get the right brain for that. Like, you know, there's something about that kind of, you know, math, intelligent, you know, it all kind of like jives some way, somehow on a plane that I'm not too familiar with. You know what I mean?
I never took like any kind of music lessons of any sort. I think my dad was probably the reason for that. I think he kept me away from music on purpose. You know, both my sisters took piano lessons. I was the only one that didn't, but I also played a lot of sports and stuff.
Sure.
But I think that he, you know, I get a lot of jazz, like I like it, but I'm kind of with you in that certain types I think that are more upbeat, I'm more into, and some of the slower stuff, like I appreciate it, but it's not like the record I'm going to grab off the shelf or anything like that. It's something that I have to be in that mindset for that, or like, oh, I really want to, like, you know, relax and sit in a hot tub with candles and smoke a joint and do nothing else, and that's when listening to someone like Miles Davis or something like that makes sense to me versus, you know, certain jazz.
Yeah,
you know, it's just not. It's not always the groove I'm going for.
No. There's, in fact, I was just minutes before you got here texting with a buddy's older brother who has just moved back to the area after, I mean, I don't know, 10, 15 years in St. Louis, and he's kind of a jazz musician, and their folks are, their father's still alive, their mom has passed, but both were into jazz. And the buddy himself lives in Virginia, and I took my kids out there July of last year, and stayed with him and his wife and their two girls. And their living room, they have one wall is like kind of these two built-in desk situations that they created when school became virtual, and but then the whole rest of the room is just for sitting and listening to jazz.
That's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, and but they make a thing out of it.
Like they don't allow the kids to listen to anything else but jazz,
no.
Like if it's just for listening to music, I'm okay with that.
Well,
but if it's like you can listen to jazz and nothing else, then I got
no. So there's a piano and an upright bass and a horn and some other kind of instrument in the room, and then there's a stereo system. And so he and his wife will sit, and the girls get to pick a record and put it on, and then they do pretend server, and they'll like take drink orders for their parents and then go make them cocktail, even like picking fresh mint out of the garden and then like bring drinks to their mom and dad. But they get to pick the record, but the whole collection is just jazz, so it's interesting. But yeah, which, you know, if that's it's sort of, you know, interesting that jazz is the entire collection, but at the same time, the music is always kind of backgroundy, right?
Yeah.
And they'll sit and visit, and the girls play their waitress game and blah blah blah. But it's just like, wow, dude, you have a fucking vinyl collection. It's only got jazz in it, and it's a couple of shelves. It's like, all right, cool. Like that's fascinating. What about your sisters? Were they when you were growing? What's the age range between older and younger?
My oldest sister is 3 years older than me, and my youngest sister is 5 years younger than me.
Okay, are they into music?
I would say I'm definitely more into music than both of them are.
Even though they were the ones that took piano lessons,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Um,
Let's put it this way: I've been to more concerts probably in 1 year than they have been in their entire life.
right. Oh, I just recalled that on that same trip where we were maybe drinking White Claws or whatever, that I met one of them. I met the one that lives outside of St. Louis.
Oh yeah, we stopped at their house. We stopped at my younger sister's house.
Okay, younger. She was not completely in the dark about like the shows that we were seeing or the music scene, and just like she knew some stuff, right? She wasn't completely oblivious.
I mean, I don't know. It's not music she listens to. She definitely has never.
No, I know, but she has an awareness, right?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat. I don't know. I really don't know how. I don't know how hip to her, she is to that kind of a show. I'd
Right.
say her musical tastes are definitely a little bit more mainstream.
Sure.
And but I think she knew the shows were going on. I really don't know.
Right. So mostly dad is playing the music. Did mom have any?
I don't think my mom played music at all.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
So was there a time or a memory that where you sort of made that leap from listening to what dad owns or what dad puts on to now you're actually like going out and buying an album or getting an album for your birthday or Christmas or...
I mean, see, the weird thing is, even though my dad played music, I think at a certain point he had to give up music, and I think that part of that was a show that he played that he got really burned on, and that's a whole little thing I could tell you about here in a moment. But I think the other part was, his family was starting, and so he didn't have time
Right.
to play in these bands. But he got burned because I remember writing a paper on this like in grade school or something, but my dad was supposed to open up with some band of his that was some jazz fusion band or something, and they were opening up at Municipal Auditorium in Kansas City, and there were like 4 or 5 bands on the bill, and they were the openers, and I think my older uncle promoted the show, and they were opening up for the Mamas and the Papas.
Oh, wow.
And so before the show starts, my uncle had some oral agreement with them, but it's back in the 70s.
Sure.
And
The wink and a handshake.
There was no written contract or anything like that. And I can't remember. My one uncle was kind of crazy, a little bit of a con man, and he probably thought he'd secured something and didn't. And so basically he went on stage before my dad's band got on and was like, hey, the Mamas and the Papas aren't going to be here. So, 50% of the crowd is pissed off and leaves, and the other 50% stays, and they're still pissed off. And from what my dad told me, they played their set, and then they never played again.
Oh, shit.
So I don't know if that completely dissolved their band or if some of those guys all went on to different things, but I don't think my dad ever played a show after that show.
Okay.
And so that's always been kind of my my thing is I won't let anybody listen to the Mamas and the Papas around me, or I turn it off. And if it comes on at the bar I work out, I skip it. Yes.
I'm sure you've seen the meme. It's really old by this point, but where the group of gals are out at a bar drinking, and the husband's home watching the kids, and he's got app access to whatever the music sift, kind of like what you have, and he keeps playing Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba.
Oh yeah, like at the bar,
Yeah.
like through the app or
Yeah.
something.
And then he's texting her, and he's like, "How's it going?" And she's like, "Oh, it's going fine." And how are things at home with the kids? And he's like, "Oh, I get knocked down, but I get up again." And then he gives like three more like one-liners like that, and she's like, "Oh my God, is that you? Fucking stop!"
Yeah.
But I can't even remember off the top of my head, and I grew up listening to pretty much only oldies. But what hits did they have?
Who cares?
Right?
Who cares? I hate the mamas and the papas.
Right.
I mean, that's the joke of my life. Is I could always, if the mamas and the papas wouldn't have screwed over my dad's band, I might be a rock star's son, or have some, I could be some roadie right now or something like that.
Right.
I don't know.
So first purchase or acquisition or love affair with an album for you when you kind of are stepping out of what your dad's playing at home.
I really started to get into a lot of stuff that, with my older sister, she was into a lot of like R&B and rap and hip hop back when it was really starting to take off, like in the late 80s, early 90s. So I remember a lot of the stuff I first started picking up was stuff that she listened to. And I had a good friend named Rob who was also really into the same kind of, R&B, hip hop, stuff.
Are you 79?
I was born in 79. Yeah.
79, okay.
So I'm at this point, I'm probably 10, 11, 12, right?
Yeah.
Like 89, 90, 91, right? When I first started getting into a lot of things. So, I don't think, the first stuff I ever remember like listening to, I remember listening to stuff on the radio. Like I remember listening to like Stevie Wonder on the radio.
Sure.
I've been like taping it.
Yeah,
and stuff
of course.
Like that. But like the first albums that I ever really got my hands on were my sister's stuff.
Did you have permission? Was she?
Yeah, yes and no.
Right,
a little
right,
bit,
yeah.
Sometimes I had permission. Sometimes I would just go grab it and listen to it. And, a lot of the stuff that she had, I probably shouldn't have been listening to at my age. When you're listening to Phish and dissect and, some of this, when you're listening to Atlians and, some really good old school hip hop and R&B but even just like Tevin Campbell and just, some, R. Kelly, all of it was just like pretty new back then. And I just remember old school Mary J. Blige and stuff like that. And so I remember like kind of taking all those albums. And then I'm trying to remember like the first album I had, I think the first album I bought with my own money was either Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Damn.
Or it was the Mo Money soundtrack. It was one of the two.
Is that Marky Mark records, that Good Vibrations?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And with
Come on.
Well, it had that on it, and it had the song I loved was that Lou Reed cover that he did.
Yeah. Was
not
Wild
Was
it Wild Side? Okay.
Yeah. So that was like
Mark.
that was like the song of that whole album that really got me into that. Good Vibrations was all right. But,
Sure.
But the
Is that the dude that married Jenny McCarthy?
I think he is married.
Yeah. She's I see her on TikTok every once in a while.
She's kind of crazy, but so's he.
Right.
His daily regimen is, I read it once. It's like insane. He gets up at like 3 a.m. and like.
Wait, no, she married Donnie.
Oh, she married Donnie?
Yeah, who's Mark's brother.
Oh, okay.
That's right. That's what it is.
My bad.
No. I'm the one that said it. So.
Doesn't change his workout routine.
No.
In the morning is insane.
No, it starts at like 3:30 or 4 and whatever. I mean, okay.
If you would have thought early in the career too, like which one would have a longer, better career, Donnie or Mark, I would have said Donnie. You know what I mean? He was in like the super popular boy band and all that. And
Oh yeah, I mean when Marky Mark put out that record, you're like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Trying to be in the same circle as your brother, but
hey, he went the acting route and made way more money.
Mm-hmm. So what about first show?
Oh man, this first show is great. The first show I ever went to was was with my older sister, and I was like 12 or 13, and her and her friends had an extra ticket, so I got to go because I went with her, and it was like 3 or 4 of her other friends. But we went to Municipal, or not Municipal, it was at Kemper, and it was the R. Kelly Keep It on the Down Low tour with LL Cool J, Mama Said Knock You Out tour, and I think the opening was Escape, which was like an R&B
Yeah.
from like
Wow.
the late 80s. So it was like, it was pretty amazing because you've never been to a show, and I mean, if you're going to go to a first show, that's a first show that, it's going to definitely open your eyes a little bit, you know what I mean? And I mean, I've never seen like, it was just kind of like culturally, it was like eye opening
For sure.
and then just, auditory and visually and everything. I mean, you came out and LL Cool J's whole stage was like this giant ghetto blaster
Oh, yeah.
that like literally took up, I mean, it was like 30 yards long.
Wow.
And the very middle of it is where his DJ played. And so his turntables were in the middle of this giant
That's cool.
ghetto blaster. And he just rhymed in front of all of it. And it was really cool. And then, like, R. Kelly just had all kinds of stage props and crazy things going on. And, like...
He didn't pee on anybody while he was there, though.
No, but he popped out of, like, a hot tub after intermission. Like, this, like, hot tub rolled out on stage. And, like, this girl was, like, dancing in the middle of this hot tub. And then he all of a sudden came out of nowhere through this hot tub from, like, underneath the stage.
Wow.
And that was the thing about that show. It's like, I've never seen so many women dressed up, like, to the T, like to the nines. Just, like, they were convinced that, like, if they got a chance to meet R. Kelly, like, they might get to be with him that night. Like, I've never heard so many women scream, like, literally all night long, all I could hear was, R. Kelly, I want to have your baby.
Wow.
Like, just all night long.
Wow.
And that was kind of trippy. I was just like, I've listened to his music, but I mean,
Dude.
I mean, I don't know. He was so popular back then that, for that time and stuff, it was just kind of nuts to, I'm 12, 13 years old. So
Sure.
I'm hormones raging with, all these hot women just dressed to the nines all around me. And I'm
Like they're going to a ball or something?
like nicer than wedding dressed
Yeah,
up. You know what I
right.
mean? Like,
Damn.
and probably a little sluttier too.
Right.
But it was just,
Did LL have like the bucket hat and shirtless, just like the Mama Said Knock You Out video? Remember that? He had that fucking deodorant.
I don't remember the video at all.
Or maybe it was unplugged.
I remember the video like where he's just in the boxing ring
Yes,
a little bit.
Yes.
But
I think it was unplugged where he was shirtless with the bucket hat and he was ripped. And he just had like white cake under his
caked
arm.
on deodorant. Yeah. No, I don't remember any of that. It was so. I mean, this was 30 years ago. I just remember the stage. I remember how massive I thought the stage was, and how, like, to me the whole prop of like the ghetto blaster. Like, I had no concept of like, you go to shows now and just what they do with LED graphics and some of that stuff now is just insane.
Yeah.
Whereas back then it's just like you actually had to build a stage.
Yeah.
You couldn't just come up with some computer graphic and then throw it into
Wow.
a computer system.
No.
They actually built stages back then that like were the backdrop for the show you'd go see.
Have you seen Long Strange Trip on Amazon?
Is that the Grateful Dead one? I've watched some of it. Yeah.
Like their crew is like building this.
Was it the wall of sound
Yeah,
or
wall
whatever?
of sound,
Yeah.
and it would take them till like 4 a.m. to break it down, and then they're loading, and then they're driving to the next, but they get to the next city, and it's time to unload and build it. I mean, I was just like, is fucking anybody sleeping? Like, holy shit, this sounds so dangerous.
Yeah. Didn't somebody die too? They
I
said,
think
like, building
more
it
than
one time or
I
something
think,
like that.
I think that amongst the collective road crew from birth to death of that band. I think there were multiple deaths. Like if it wasn't a band member dying, it was a road crew, person dying.
Yeah.
But
I do remember watching that. And yeah, so like, have you seen how big that wall of sound is? Like, I felt like that ghetto blaster was like half that size.
Right?
Is what it looked like.
Crazy.
You know what I mean?
Speaking of R. Kelly, I Want to Have Your Baby. I just learned about this yesterday on a podcast, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Are you aware of what Drake does after he has an evening with a lady?
No.
When he takes his condom off, he puts hot sauce in it and then throws it in the trash in case somebody wants to fish that condom out and try and get its contents and put them in themselves to have his baby. So these guys are talking about it on the spot, and they Google it, and
couldn't he just get his tubes tied? I mean, couldn't he just have like a, what it was, a vasectomy or whatever?
Yeah,
you know what
I'm sure that
they're reversible. I mean, and he's
are.
got more money than God.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it, $1,000? Just fucking you probably spend more money on hot sauce than you would on the vasectomy.
So they were like talking about this, and one of their people in the booth or whatever Googled, does hot sauce kill sperm? And it was like, no. It's like, so really, you're just going to cause them extreme discomfort?
Yeah, it's not going to do anything to the sperm. It's just
going to burn your coochie for a half an hour or so.
How bad do you want Drake's baby?
I mean, pretty bad, apparently.
Hey,
good grief.
I doubt a little Tabasco is going to stop him then.
Yeah. Wow, that was a pretty wild first show. What would you say would be your top one or two best shows?
Man,
I know there's been a lot.
Man, top one. I mean, I don't know, man. That's really hard because I feel like I have a lot of shows that, like, at a certain age where, like, I was like, man, how does it get better than that? You know what I mean? Whereas the older I get, it's not so much as like, oh, that was way better than this, but like that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I have a few shows that like really stick out in my head. Like I remember, but it's weird. Some of the shows that stick out in my head, like I don't remember tons of details about them, but I just remember like walking out of those shows, like I got every bit of my dollar's worth.
Right.
Paying for that ticket.
So what were some of those?
Probably Paul Simon and Bob Dylan I think it was at Riverfront in St. Louis. It was whatever venue I've only been there once or maybe twice, and I think it's the same type venue as like Sandstone here in Kansas City. But it was just really cool to see two legends who, I've been listening to their music for a little bit at that time, and not only did I get to see them individually, but then to see them play a couple songs together and see how short they were next to each other on stage was hilarious. Because you're like, man, he's short. Man, he's shorter than him. Like
right.
It was just like I felt like it. I was like, am I a giant compared to these guys? But then Paul Simon comes out too, and like it's probably the first time I've ever seen someone play on stage with like 30 some odd people. You know what I mean? Like he had 4 or 5 percussionists. He had a choir over here, and he had 2 different guys playing bass, and what I mean, it's just like all over the stage. You're just like, but the sound they created was so in tune and so melodic.
Cool.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you could have too much going on, but it just seemed like it was more like seeing like a symphony than it was like seeing like a rock show.
That's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, that was a really, really interesting show to go to, because I hadn't, really ever seen anything like that. I've been to a lot of, Phish and Panic shows, and some of them have been some of my favorites. But like even like the first time I saw the Roots at the House of Blues.
Is that Texas, New Orleans? Where is that?
House of Blues, Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
There's House of Blues in New Orleans and some other places, but the one I was at was in Chicago, and Common opened up.
Oh, wow.
And Common was a big deal when I lived in Chicago. I mean, late 90s, early 2000s.
Is he from there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's a big deal in Chicago. It'd be like going to see, what's Chance the Rapper right now in Chicago. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, at the time, Common was, pretty well known. And I never seen the Roots. I maybe barely listened to a couple of their albums. Did not know a ton about them. And I think I maybe a month or two before the show picked up Phrenology, and that was the album I'd been listening to, and I'd just been like playing it every day, all day long. And I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, these guys are insane. And so I went and saw them play, and I'd been to a lot of hip hop shows or been to different, hip hop clubs and stuff like that at that point in my life. I'd never once seen a hip hop group play their own music.
Right.
And that was like,
I've never seen the Roots.
eye-opening for me. So it was just like, wow, like this is a legit, like, fully instrumentalized hip hop group.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was pretty amazing to me to like kind of, it just opened my eyes. It's like, these guys aren't just throwing on a record and rapping over, beats or doing this. Like, they are literally creating music with a hip hop, message and undertone and all that stuff,
I feel like that dude is so freaking Questlove right now. He's like whatever Fallon, the band for, and then, I mean, he's in commercials. He's got like, I mean, I feel like he's got.
I think he just won an Oscar.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or, I think he's got his hands in a lot of
Exactly.
pies right now. I don't know exactly what he just seems to be. He's not only musically talented, but he's also he's grown up around a lot of musical history and knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes him really, really unique, is that not only does he have an understanding of how to play music, that in itself is hard to do.
Yeah.
But then to understand the history of all this music that's come before him.
Yep.
And not just the stuff he's playing. I think that's what makes him really interesting and unique. And He's
in a commercial right now that airs during movie previews. I know because we've just gone, me and the kids, we did Top Gun, and then we did The Rise of Gru, and then last night, my daughter's at camp, but last night my boy and I went to see Lightyear. And there's a Questlove, he's doing some kind of food, I forget what it's for, but he's got a torch in the kitchen, and he's burning all kinds of stuff. And my son's like, how do I know that guy? I'm like, it's Questlove, man. Like, he's freaking everywhere. Like, and I mean, the tone in which I say that is jokingly, but my 8-year-old, it's like, I know that guy.
Yeah.
It's crazy and cool, super cool.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got the look too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's
and for whatever reason, Fallon gets trashed a lot. I know there's lots of people that are like, he laughs at everything, it's annoying, but there's so many times and I don't watch, just see shit on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, where he's doing a bit with a guest, or they're playing one of those funny little games, and he'll be like, can you give us whatever? He said, and the Roots just half a second, and they're into it,
Yeah.
Flawless, so who was with Paul Simon at that one show?
Bob Dylan.
Wow. Okay. So the Roots, Paul Simon, Bob Dylan, any others come to mind?
I mean, I don't know, man. I've seen a lot of crazy shows.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the first time I saw Phish was in Kansas City, at Sandstone, and that was pretty crazy because I'd never seen. Not just like musically talented band like that, but I'd never seen a crowd like that. And to me, that was kind of, it made the whole concert set apart from like I said, going to R. Kelly for the first time, there's definitely there's an environment that's at a concert or a show. And
what was it about the crowd at that Sandstone show?
So I'd never seen, I'd never been to a hippie jam band show.
Right,
so
right,
I'd never
right.
seen girls twirling around for no reason. And some of it.
There's always a reason, George.
I mean, there might be a reason, but
in their mind.
Yeah, in somebody's mind. But you know, but a lot of it too was very eye opening for me, and it was kind of like, wow, like this is a place where you can just kind of, it was almost like you can just come here and do whatever the fuck you want.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
part of that was kind of really appealing. It's like this person doesn't care what I'm doing. I don't care what they're doing, and everybody's just kind of free to do whatever the fuck they want.
Right.
With this thing.
Yeah.
And to me, that was super appealing. 'Cause,
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to a show like, I'm not coming to the show to bring my problems or to bring anything from my outside world into this show. You know what I mean? Like, all I want to bring to the show is like, I want to hear this music and I want to just let loose and do whatever,
Yeah.
just kind of,
Check out.
That's why I came to the show.
Yeah.
That's why I listen to music, because it's not to have any of these outside things in my life affect that. Like,
Right.
I'm trying to appreciate it for what it is, and shows should be an escape from everything going on.
For
you know
sure.
what I mean? And that was the first time I had really, really kind of truly experienced that.
You remember what year it was?
I want to say I used to have the tape somewhere. I still have the cassette tape. It was either 97 or 98.
Yeah. Did
But
it rain before?
I don't remember that.
Okay.
I do remember it was the first time I ever bought a bag of Kind Bud, and it was White Widow, and it was really good. And I do remember that they played a lot of stuff from Gamehenge or whatever.
Oh, really? Okay.
So they played like Tila and Lizards,
Wow.
and It's Ice and Maze, and a lot of really old school songs. And like at the time, I mean, I'd been listening to Phish a little bit on albums and stuff.
Yeah.
But I had no idea, like, if I remember years later looking back at that show and like looking at set lists and being like, oh, what a poser I was. I didn't even know what the hell, what a treat I was given for that show. Like, that show was, like, if you had, like, a hardcore Phish fan, like, look at that show, they'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you don't get to hear all those songs in one show.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
that's what kind of show it was.
Wow.
And
Show
but the beautiful thing I think of it was I didn't go into the show with some preconceived notion of like, I got to hear this song.
Dude, that's the only way to go to shows with zero expectations.
Yeah.
I see these here. This is my 150th show. I'm still trying to get my first mound. It's like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what? Come on.
And I've definitely been through phases like that in my life where like I go to a show and I'm like, I got to hear this. And then I leave like pissed off. Like, I didn't get to hear this one song I like. And I kind of quit doing that a long time ago for that very reason. It's like, if I hear things I like, then awesome, you know. But if not, I might hear something like, wow, I've never heard that song before. Or, I don't go in with any kind of like preconceived notion of like, blah. And I know they've got those websites where you can like punch in all the shows you've been to, and it'll tell you like, oh, it's been 364 days since you heard
Phish.net.
this song at this, blah blah, and you've heard this song 13 times. I don't care.
Yeah.
I really don't.
I used to love. I have a Fishnet profile, and I used to love. I still do. I'll go in if
I probably have one
if
at
I
one
see
point.
a show, I'll go in and put that I was there. But what happens is the stat that the nearest stat to me is always the list of how many times you've seen song X, and for the longest time it was You Enjoy Myself, and at some point Chalk Dust Torture passed it and just never looked back. So even though I go to shows with zero, when I hear that opening, I'm like, fucking Jesus Christ. And sometimes I'll see a cool jam evolve out of it, but whenever I go to that site, it's like the first stat. It's like, oh yeah, fucking Chalk Dust. God damn it. So I don't spend too much time on there anymore. But
Yeah, I mean, I probably haven't even been on Phish.net in probably 15 years.
Right. So you talked about picking up phrenology by the Roots.
Yeah.
How are you consuming music in your time away from work these days?
Like today?
Well, but was today a work day for you?
Yes and no.
I mean, it's always a gray area in your line of work.
I had to go into work, and I had to go do a bunch of stuff today. So yeah. Today was a work day.
Right. But I mean, when you're legit off and you don't have to go in the building or do anything remotely, are you consuming music, and if so, how?
I would say majority of what I do now is listen to Spotify.
Okay.
And maybe I'm getting a little bit more old and set in my ways, but I'll either, if I know I'm not going to be listening to music very long, then I just go listen to my liked songs, like songs I've already liked.
Yeah.
That, all right, I just want to hear something I like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it's like something where I'm looking to try something new or do something like that, I might say, hey, man, I'm in like a Beck mood, and throw on Beck radio. And then it might, lately I haven't been great about, I don't have a lot of vast amounts of free time to go look and find new music. So I'll do something like that where it's a radio station where they'll play something similar to Beck or something. And then I'll go, I like that song, and I'll like it. And then maybe I'll track back later and like listen to a whole album and be like, oh, wow, it was just that one song. Or I'll be like, oh, wow, this whole album was great.
So I've brought this up a bunch of times on here, and I try to avoid being repetitive, but sometimes you just can't get out of your own way. I was turned on to the creative director for Phish has a playlist on Spotify, and it is all of the house music. Pre-first set, intermission, after second set from 2009 to current. Every show. And it's
really?
I mean, 550 albums and like 10,500 hours of music. It is absolutely incredible. And so I don't pay for Spotify, but I can access shit free via Shuffle, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's always playing in my kitchen. And if I hear something cool, I'll look at it and then add it to my Apple Music. And then if I'm out driving around, I'm on Shuffle all the time. Just, nope, that's it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that playlist is, I mean, if I don't change it up and there's not like the Wi-Fi shorts out or something, I think it's like 10 days straight to like get through. I mean, it's something crazy. Like, and they keep adding, like they're on tour right now, so new shit's getting added.
And the only other place I've obviously I work in a bar, so like I'll hear stuff on the jukebox that, sometimes I'm like, wow, I know this is pretty mainstream, but I like this.
Yeah.
Or the only other place I've found in the last, 5, 6, 7 years that I've really kind of like found out about some bands I really like it was the NPR Tiny Desk concert.
Oh,
stuff.
man, that's, yeah.
And somebody finally showed me that, like, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that, and I just went down the rabbit hole, like, hardcore for, like,
Did you come across anything
weeks.
that you didn't like?
Like, 2 weeks just down a rabbit hole of just, like, watching Tiny Desk concerts constantly. Like, TV didn't exist during that time. I mean, I was just watching that on TV. And, I mean, but I found out about a lot of great
That's
music.
awesome.
I mean, Leon Bridges was one of them, and St. Paul and the Broken Bones, and it's the first time I heard what's his name, the drummer that's doing stuff with everybody now. I can't even think of his name right now. The guy that just did the song with oh my god, I can even think of the beat of the song in my head, but I can't think of who it is. But all that stuff has just kind of been stuff that I've not only seen bands that I liked on NPR Tiny Desk concert, and just been like, oh, this is even more of an appreciation.
Have there been any that you didn't care for, or that you skipped, or?
There's been a couple, but like there's been a couple too. I mean, there's a couple of slower ones. Like, I'm not watching the Sheryl Crow NPR Tiny Desk concert. Which the funny thing, and the other thing about this NPR Tiny Desk concert thing is my parents had never heard of it, and one of the first ones I ever saw was what's the country guy that everybody loves? Stapleton.
Yeah.
And I watched that and I was like, this is pretty good. It's him and his wife, and I mean it's good. And he's really good. And that was one of the first Tiny Desk concerts I saw. And I'm not a big current country music guy at all, you know. I like a lot of bluegrass and stuff like
Sure.
that, but you know, but I watched that and I was like, man, this is amazing. And my mom really likes Chris Stapleton, and we were down at the lake a couple weeks ago, and I was just like, have you ever seen the Tiny Desk concert with him? And she's like, what's the Tiny Desk concert? Like, they didn't even know what it was. So I literally, I showed them the one, and then like they stayed down at the lake, and
Is this Ozarks?
yeah, they're down at Lake of the Ozarks.
They have a place?
They've got a condo down there.
Okay.
We went down. It was actually 4th of July, so a week and a half
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And me and Katie came back from the lake, and you know, I talked to my dad like 3-4 days later, and he's like, "Yeah, we went down a rabbit hole." And like they've literally been watching all this NPR Tiny Desk concerts.
Nice.
But yeah, all those things that were kind of just like finding all these bands that, like, you know, either I hadn't heard of or like someone that you knew who was pretty mainstream, like T-Pain. Like T-Pain's got a Tiny Desk concert, and it's awesome because it's him without auto-tune and stuff like that. And he can actually sing.
I only know the name. I don't know who that is, but just I recognize it.
He's got the song, Let Me Buy You a Drink. Oh, that one.
Maybe.
Ah, man, I'm trying to think. See, and I'm terrible with song names. I
cool.
can never, ever do that. But yeah, T-Pain, that one was amazing to watch. It's just like, because, you know, if you hear his mainstream pop stuff, it's all auto-tuned.
Sure.
Beats everywhere and stuff.
Sure.
But then you just hear him literally sing with just like him and a piano, and it's like, holy shit.
Nice. Are you and Katie similar taste-wise, or?
I wouldn't. No, not necessarily. She's not really into the hippie jam bands.
Sure.
She loves country music.
Okay.
Which, you know, I always tell her, I'm like, please don't leave my car on the country music station when you borrow my car. So it's definitely, you know, she listens to a lot, you know, she's a little bit younger, so she listens to a lot, you know, just different bands. And,
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
we just, you know, one of her favorites is AJR. I actually just went to that show.
I don't know who that is either.
They're like a pop band that's, you know, maybe only been, you know, they've gotten pretty good in the last few years. I think they got kind of TikTok famous or something.
Nice. Good for them.
So, and, but I went to their show, and I mean, their show was pretty.
Where was it?
It was at Starlight.
Really?
Yeah, like a month and a half ago.
Big crowd?
It sold out.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
packed.
Wow.
And it was kind of crazy. Like I said, they are a little bit TikTok famous, so obviously the crowd was, it was weird going to a show like that. You know, it's like age 10, 11, 12 years old to, you know, my age and older, you know what I mean, at the show. So I was like, definitely hadn't been to a show in a while where I'm like, oh, there's families here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mind your P's and Q's.
I know. I had to be on my best behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely not like a Phish or a Panic show.
No.
But you know, show-wise and visually and sound-wise, I mean, they were very good. Like the whole entertainment, you know, aspect of them. You know, do I think they're the most musically talented guys I've ever heard? No. But I mean, are they really good at what they do? Yeah, they were pretty good. So
Nice.
and you know, I would say that's probably one of her favorite bands, and I'm trying to think of who else she listens to, but I don't, you know.
Yeah. Should we pause for a bathroom break and drink refresh before we get into your records?
Let's do it.
All right. So, I gotta say, I was pretty surprised at your list. But it all kind of, you know, you talked about the first stuff that you heard being your sister's. You got a 91 and two 95s from your list. And so if we go chronologically, 91, Pearl Jam 10, which, I mean, that we could probably do 3 hours breaking down everything that record was and still is. And Talk to me about it. How did it land in your lap?
I mean, that was an album that was really big. You know, back when I was in this like late grade school is what I remember. Like, you know, I think I was in fifth or sixth grade. I just moved schools from like living in Blue Springs to moving to Leawood. And so I was at a new school, and that, Nirvana kind of maybe came out around the same time, but I was more into Pearl Jam than I was in Nirvana. And back then, that was when, I had just started to work. I was a caddy, so I had my own money finally. So, I was making 20, $30 a day, carrying bags,
Sure.
heavy 50-pound golf bags for old rich white men at Blue Hills. And I turned around and I spent all that money basically on baseball cards and CDs.
Yeah.
That's what I spent my money on back then. And everyone back then had, you got one of those BMG or Columbia House record
10 tapes for a penny.
subscription. Yeah. Sounded like a great idea, man. Like, let me do all this, and then screw my credit up completely before I'm even 16.
Right.
But, I remember getting a lot of albums through BMG and stuff like that, and it was also kind of cool because it's like, if you wanted to get certain albums, like, I could get those almost on the sly without my mom knowing it. Maybe I was getting an album I shouldn't have or something, like something with explicit lyrics.
Yeah, the old stamp.
And so I liked it because, she kind of would look at what I was getting, but not real hardcore. Or
Did you ever have the one where you get the whole fucking booklet of stamps, and you tear out the stamp with the album art of and you put it on the form? No, I think that was Columbia House.
Oh, like for like what you wanted or
Yeah.
something?
So you get a form and it had like 10 squares, but then you had this whole booklet of stamps, and you
Yeah.
rip out and stick it to the thing and send it back.
I faintly remember.
Yeah, right,
that.
right.
I don't. I mean,
Many brain cells ago for both of us, I'm sure.
yeah, but I mean, I just remember that was kind of, when I first started buying my own albums, Pearl Jam 10 was probably one of my first 10 albums I ever owned.
If you had to take a shot in the dark, how many times would you say you've listened to that album start to back? Double digits for sure, right?
I mean, to be honest with you, in the last 15 years, probably not even once.
Right.
But back then, I mean, we're talking, you listen to music differently when you're younger,
100%.
Back then I would, every night listen to that album, or, you'd listen to, you'd fall asleep to it every night or something, like you got it and you just devoured it, and you lived it for like a couple weeks at least.
Oh man. Yeah.
Whereas I don't feel like I do that with albums at all anymore. You know what I mean? It's just not the same as you get older. Maybe it's just because you have so many other things that are kind of pulling your attention. Yep. Whereas when you're younger, like, you could literally live and breathe that album for an entire month and know it inside and out, backwards, forwards, everything. And back then, that was one of the first albums I really kind of, would sing along to and listen to, and just, lyrically really kind of pay attention to the lyrics too. That was
no small ask when it comes to deciphering Eddie Vedder from.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's a whole lane of TikToks that people will like record themselves listening to an Pearl Jam song, and then on the they'll put the text of what they think he's singing or how it sounds like to them.
Well, but back then, I remember this. You had the whole booklet that came with the CD, and it actually had the lyrics in it. So that was the only way you could really decipher all of what Eddie Vedder was saying, is that they actually gave you the lyrics, because otherwise half of it wouldn't have made sense. But
there's a text thread with high school buddies, and the topic of not, for lack of a better term, perfect album came up, and the criteria is an album that you would listen to front to back without skipping any songs, and the one that some folks were agreeing on was Appetite for Destruction. And That's neither here nor there, but I mean, do you have favorites off of 10, and are there tracks that you might skip today if you threw it on, do you think, or would you go for the whole thing?
I mean, I don't. I would probably just listen to the whole thing straight through. I mean, and I'm a lot different than I think anybody else I've ever met as far as music goes, and that a lot of people can literally name like, oh, this. I know this song. I know this song. I know the songs. I know what they sound like. I can almost tell you the lyrics, but I can't tell you what the name of the song is.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I've always kind of been that way, and I'm not a name person on songs. Like I can go to a Phish show and know 95% of the songs played, and some of them I might know the name to, but like I couldn't tell you which album it came off
Right.
of,
Right.
or I can't tell you the first album it was on, or something like that. So for me, um, there was definite favorites on that album, but I couldn't tell you like I couldn't rank songs or I couldn't do anything like that. I've never really listened to music or
Sure.
listened to albums that way.
Well, regardless, I mean, I think you can make the argument that, when we were in St. Louis, we had a long day after a kind of a crazy night, kicking it in, was it Chip? Was that his name?
Oh, Clay,
Clay.
Clay,
God, I always screw that up. We had a
Clay,
long
Clay, Clayonce.
we had a long day laying around on furniture in his basement watching movies, and I forget what the movie. I think it was Austin Powers. I think Austin Powers was on, and he says, "This is the first time I heard this phrase." He said, "It's really fascinating how well this movie has aged. I can't say the same about the sequels." He said something along those lines. And to me, 10 has aged flawlessly. Like, it's still a really good record, and I don't know why that is, but would you agree? I mean, it's
Well, I mean, a lot of Eddie Vedder songs. I think the message behind some of them have aged well. I mean, just look at obviously probably one of the most prolific songs is Jeremy. And current things happening with guns and everything else in society. You look at that and look at all that angst that was kind of early '90s that kind of bore out a lot of these school shootings and stuff like that. Like that kind of spoke to that. I mean that message obviously hasn't gone anywhere.
no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody's really figured that out yet. And then, I also think that um, from a melodic, just storytelling aspect, I think Eddie Vedder just he has a way of telling a story, or his music just the band as a whole, or even his solo stuff. It just has like a melody to it that kind of just doesn't you know doesn't matter when you listen to it or how much older you get. Like it still feels relevant, and it still feels like you know I don't care if you're my age, if you're almost mid 40s, or if you're 25. I still think you can see
Yeah.
the passion and the beauty in that music.
I saw a YouTuber last week. He just shoots videos of himself kind of giving synopses of musicians and albums. And I have some of these guys on my high school buddies text threads are like all the way as far as you can go, like Pearl Jam geeks. I recently got this for myself, which is just a Maxell XL2. It's also the inspiration for that poster. It's what I use to tape all my bootlegs. But one of my buddies, the back of his phone, I haven't seen him in a few years, but the last time I did, it had a preserved handwritten set list from the last Pearl Jam show he'd been at. I was like, damn. But anyway, they're like super, super Pearl Jam fans, and they know all the details to Mother Love Bone. and Temple of the Dog. Did you ever listen to that record?
I remember some of it being on like the single soundtrack or something, right?
Yeah, yeah. The big tracks from Temple of the Dog were Hunger Strike and Say Hello to Heaven. I mean, those are probably the
Yeah.
most accessible. But anyway, this YouTuber he did a post about the origin of Temple of the Dog, so Soundgarden is they meet up with Eddie Vedder, and they're at a studio or whatever, and they're rehearsing Hunger Strike, and of course Chris Cornell famously, has this wild vocal range, right? He can hit the highest of the highs, and they can sound beautiful, but he was struggling to hit the lows, and I guess Eddie's just sitting there watching this, and he's just hanging out. He's not there because they're like, let's record this. So anyway, I guess he just went up and was like, are you trying to do something? Like, I don't mind, Steve. And they're like, yeah, can can you do that again? And then that's how he ended up doing the vocal, his portion of that. It was like this random organic thing, which I think speaks to, this sort of longevity and aging well of stuff that Vedder does. It's really impressive. I am completely, in a sense, I have no place or right to say this, because I haven't done the homework. I haven't even opened the book, really. But for me personally, and you talked about being pulled in different directions as you get older. I was going in different directions musically, but I kind of checked out after 10. I mean, I had verses, and it didn't speak to me, and I don't really think I might have, was Vitology maybe third. Anyway, point being, I completely checked out after 10. Are you familiar with any of their stuff? Are you a fan of their stuff after 10?
I remember liking Vitology, and was Versus the one with like the animal on the cover?
Yeah.
Once again,
daughter.
terrible with names.
Yeah, don't call me. And then the elderly woman behind a counter in a small town.
Yeah, and I remember Versus was okay for me. Vitology I did like because it had a lot of like really good like hard songs on it that were like a little bit faster paced than some of the stuff off 10 even. You know what I mean? That I did kind of like, where Eddie Vedder really kind of like like vocally just let loose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't remember much after Vitology.
11 studio albums.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm like pretty much until I got to college, like all through high school, I was listening to Pearl Jam.
Okay.
But it felt like once I hit college, I kind of dropped off with them a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was also when I really kind of started to branch out into a lot of different, musically, that's really when I got into, Phish and Panic.
Sure.
And, all the other kind of offshoots of jam bands and stuff like that I kind of started to listen to a little bit heavier at that point, and really got into more like, it seems like when I was really young I listened to like a lot of hip hop, and then I kind of didn't listen to really terrible hip hop maybe in high school, and then I got way back more into like some underground type stuff as I got older.
Yeah, you went from having your associates to having a master's.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah. I'd still, I don't know if I got that master's degree yet.
Well,
still,
I mean,
I'm more learned.
You're just
more learned than some other people.
You're just a few credit hours shy.
Yeah. They just don't like to let me graduate.
We're going to let you walk, but you got to come back for a summer session.
Yeah. We're not giving you the piece of paper yet.
So we skip ahead from 91 to 95, and 311 Self-Titled was on your list. And always surprises me when a band chooses to go the self-titled route with a record that's not their first. and that was their third. I mean, it's just curious. It's no harm, no foul. It's just very curious to me. But they had two records before 311, but that was the one that you.
I just remember that was one of the first albums that I listened to a lot in my own car. So I bought a 87 Honda hatchback Accord. It was blue. It was ugly as hell. It
It's
had
just like the cover. It's sometimes referred to as the Blue Album.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it was the car had a decent stereo system in it. I'll give it that. I bought a CD player and put it
I
in.
was going to say tape deck or.
It was initially a tape deck, which you put the tape deck thing into it with your portable CD player.
With the cord.
Yeah.
Going to your Discman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you hope that you don't hit a pothole so it skips.
Right.
3-second protection.
Right.
You know? But I do remember, like, that album was one of the first where I was really, like, bumping it in my car. And, you know, what was it? One song, like,
Well, for me.
Fuck the bullshit, it's time to throw down, or whatever that song is.
Okay.
It's like one of the later tracks in the album
Sure.
or something. But I remember just, like, raging that
mean,
song.
The two tracks that really stand out to me are Down, which is the lead off track, and All Mixed Up. And to me, those, just if you could distill the essence of those two, to me, that's like the 311 sound that we all, you know.
All mixed up for sure, because that had S.A. Martinez like perfectly, like, kind of.
S.A. Martinez.
And wasn't that the guy's name?
I don't know.
There's Nick Hexum,
Okay.
and then S.A. Martinez. He was the other singer guy.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was kind of the one that did, like, he's a little Mexican dude that did, like, some of the rapping and stuff like
nice,
that.
nice.
Kind of, but he also sang too. But that you know, All Mixed Up, you know, I remember him, and then I'm trying to remember what else off that album. It's been a while, but that album was something I remember I played a lot in my car. And then that's when I really first started going and choosing to go what shows I wanted to go to.
Yeah, man.
Because I had a car.
Yeah.
I could go purchase my own ticket, and I could go drive there, and, you know, that was the first freedom I had to go to, like, concerts and stuff like that. And I remember me and my buddy Billy would literally, any 311 show or Urge, we went to a lot of Urge, or they'd play together, Urge and 311. And we basically bought tickets to every show that they played within the vicinity of Kansas City. And I mean, I broke my hand at an Urge show. I basically went to in a 3-year period, I probably saw Urge, not Urge, 311, like, probably 10 to 12 times or something. Like, I mean, we drove to Topeka once.
Sure.
And that was the first time I was ever introduced to Fred Phelps, or whatever the guy is from the Westboro Baptist. Because
Did you see the footage of Nirvana? Dave Grohl.
Yeah.
They were just
of him playing in the
playing to the protesters.
Yeah, well, I saw that, like, with the last time they were in town. But I remember going to that show in Topeka, because it was maybe only the second or third time I'd seen them play, and pulling up. You know, me and my buddy Billy drove, because Topeka was like, what, hour and 15 minutes away, or whatnot, and we pulled up, and, you know, they had all these, like, cardboard, like, stick figure pictures of, like, men bending over other men and saying, you know, this is a crime against God.
And what's the connection between what they're upset about and 311 or Dave Grohl or whatever?
I think it just gave them
a platform.
A
platform.
There's a bunch of people that are going to be in this place, and we're gonna. They had nothing better to do.
Fucking take a hike.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but in my experience, there's pockets of 311 fans, and you have super fans, and then you have people that are kind of just neutral about them, and then you have a significant pocket of people. I don't want to call them haters, but they're quick to trash them for whatever reason, and I've never really understood. And here's the closest I've come. It's like the trashers or the hater, whatever. It's almost, and nobody's ever said this. It's just completely made up in my head. But it's almost like they want to say that 311 isn't Rage Against the Machine, and 311 in my mind has never set out to be that.
I never wanted to be that.
So
311 is just, hey, we're gonna have fun,
right?
And we're gonna create, like, they're very kind of, I wouldn't say they were very Scottish, but they definitely had a little bit of a reggae sound to them.
This is the thing. First of all, this record is completely bumpable. You know, high volume in your car, cruise, especially at a young age when you're like really just kind of mainlining freedom for the first time. But here's where I think that those that might be quick to trash, forget, or overlook is that they took rock and they took reggae and they took sort of this ska punkish kind of, and then by the way, there's also fucking somebody on turntables, and they figured out the recipe to put that all together, and I think the end result is always fun.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie about it. I mean, you go to a 311 show, and there's gonna be a bunch of bros there. I mean, in flip flops and cargo shorts and whatnot. But I've yet to be at a 311 show where I didn't have fun. Do I think they are the most musically talented band I've ever seen? No,
they didn't set out to be that.
And they weren't trying to be that either. But I mean, as far as musically entertaining and as far as live music goes, like, that's an experience. It's definitely its own little world that I think is totally valuable. You know what I mean?
13 fucking records, these guys. I mean, they still are just putting shit out.
They
still tour.
I saw them like 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know
just before COVID.
They have March 11th, 311 Day, and I think they've had. I don't know if they currently do, but at one point I think they've had sort of like a festival where they're kind of the center. I don't know if that's the same as 311 Day.
Where are they from again? Are they from
Nebraska?
Is it Omaha or something?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I saw him play one time downtown Chicago when I was in school, and
big crowd.
It was like the day before or something. They announced, like, hey, we're gonna be in this park and we're gonna play a show. No tickets. It didn't cost any money. They just showed up in this plaza in the middle of downtown and started playing music. And it was super cool. Like, all these people showed up because, like, out of nowhere, it was like, oh wow, I can go down there. And I mean, they probably only played 5-6 songs.
Oh wow!
But it was kind of like one of those pop up things where, like, hey, we're here and we're just gonna show up at this park or this plaza and play a bunch of music. And it was like, I don't even remember where it was at downtown, but I just remember being like, yeah, I'll jump on the L and go down and see this.
I've seen some shows sort of informal gathering at Lincoln Square. There's a little plaza down there where, like, I think I saw a Beatles cover band play. But
no, this would have been like downtown, like off State Street or something like that, like near where they do like Skate on State and stuff like that.
Sure.
They have a slightly bigger plaza, but still probably only 500 to 1,000 people or something like that. But
well, you mentioned just a minute ago with Jeremy and sort of the precursor to the angst associated with what we now know to be a problem without a solution, it would appear, with school shootings. But I love that there's a track on this record called "Guns Are for Pussies."
I don't remember. Once again, don't remember song names.
I know, but
took to save my life. But yeah, that is funny.
So we stay in '95. For your third selection, and this one above all really surprised me, and you went a live one, Phish. Talk to me about that choice, how that record landed in your lap, or how you developed a relationship with it.
I think it was like my buddy Billy was the one that gave me the album, and he was the one that I was going to all the 311 shows with and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So him and I were kind of like concert buddies.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I mean, he was honestly he introduced me to a bunch of bands that I'd never really heard of. You know, I think he was maybe the first time I'd listened to Rage or anybody like that. I think he was one of the ones that introduced me and stuff. With that album, I remember it was, I think Phish was coming to town and they were supposed to play at like Memorial Hall or something
Okay.
like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it was my junior year of high school. And I was supposed to go to the show and I had a ticket. And so like he'd give me this album and I started listening to it and I really liked it. I was like, yeah, let's go to this show. And because at that time, like I didn't even have to know who the band was. I would go to a show.
Right.
Like, you know, Two Skinny Jays. Yeah, I'll go to the show. Who cares? You know what I mean? And you know, if I liked it, I liked it. If I didn't, I didn't. You know, I was just eating up any concert I could go to. You know what I mean? If I knew the music, awesome. If I didn't, I'd probably still go and then be like, that was trash.
Right.
But at least, you know, I was making my own decisions on it, you know, as far as what I liked and didn't like. And with that one, I started listening to that album and it just kind of, it all just kind of clicked with me, man. It was like, you know, melodically, it was kind of joined together a lot of the music I'd listened to when I was younger. You know, that kind of older 70s, early 80s kind of sound
Sure.
of music, but also with, you know, it just seemed, you know, just kind of put it all together for me. And I remember I was supposed to go to that show in that fall and I got in trouble for something. And I got grounded from the show. And
Damn.
I remember being so pissed off. Like I did something stupid, like went out and got drunk or something and got caught. And my parents like grounded me from going to that show, and all my friends got to go, and I was super, super pissed. So mad about that, but then that forced my next show to be the one I saw at Sandstone, which was probably 3 times better than the set list at that.
I had a ticket to that show too, but I moved to Colorado and missed it. And several of the buddies on this high school thread were at it, and they still talk about one of them in particular. He doesn't really have much to say about the show. He just talks about how it's still the highest he's ever been. Which, you know, that'll happen if you're not careful at a Phish show.
Yeah.
But I think again, sort of not too far from that Sandstone. I think there was kind of,
they were within like a year and a half.
Well,
of each other
I think the set list was
similar.
No slouch.
Yeah.
But I'm in Colorado. I discovered them in senior year of high school. First via a bootleg in somebody's car, and then I got my hands on Rift, and eventually, you know, I got Junta and Lawn Boy and Picture of Nectar, and then now I've got it all. It's all hardwired in. I move out there, and Hoist comes out, and I'm like, this feels like a departure from everything, and in some sense, every album's a departure from everything they've ever done before.
Hoist is the one. It's like super bluegrassy kind of, right?
It's got Scent of a Mule, and you know, it's the red one with the horse being. It's got Julius and Down with Disease, and anyway,
it's a little bit harder, like a little bit more fast paced.
It's also slower in parts, but anyway. This is 94, 95, 96, that range where all information is either word of mouth or via their newsletter, the Doniac Chevice, which if you had a subscription, you would get it a couple times a year in your mailbox. And it was like, that was it. You know, that was kind of like where you would find out about tour, and you would send off, you know, for tickets or find out about, hey, we've just been in the studio, album coming in the fall, blah, blah, blah. I remember finding out I was like, okay, there's not another album on the horizon. And I was like, wow, I guess they are kind of putting out albums that quickly, but also it feels like Hoist kind of just came out. So like, wow, interesting. And then it was announced that it was going to be a double album, a live one. And I was like, what? No, because by that time I have like, I don't know, 20, 30 bootlegs. So I'm in the live show game. I was like, I don't need you to do that. But what, of course,
So you were in the live. I never got into the live show game. I got a couple. Like I started to record them, and then like by the time I started to consider getting in the live show game, that was really when MP3s got really big and Napster and all that.
yeah.
And I was like, I don't have to sit around and just try to record this cassette off my buddy and when I can just download it
Yeah,
real quick. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like that kind of changed the game a little bit. But I mean, sometimes the recordings would be so horrible. I'm like, I
Well,
can't listen to this.
that was when most of the things going around were audience, taper tickets.
Yeah.
And you're probably 2-3 generations removed from the original, and every once in a while you'd come across a soundboard,
Yeah.
but even then you're 2, 3, 4 generations removed. But anyway, I was like, and then it's you talked about that Sandstone show and the Setland, like Attila, and so they threw a few tracks on a live one. I don't know if you saw it sitting over there,
I did.
which were live favorites that had never been released on a studio album before. I mean, like Gumbo, the version of Gumbo, which is kind of a jazzy New Orleans kind of fun feel. A lot of cool things happening on that record. The You Enjoy Myself is like 28 minutes long with the craziest vocal jam ever. But
You Enjoy Myself was one for a long time and still may be to this day. And then I know, I don't even know, maybe I'll get on Phish.net and see how many times I've heard it, but it still to me is one of my favorite all-time songs of theirs. Like, and I don't care how many times I hear it.
I don't either. And every once in a while, it's sort of like, if I had an electric car and needed to plug in and charge it every once in a while, I am that way with the studio version of that song, because it is, to me, it is like the best, most incredibly crafted, well executed, and so off. I mean, whatever it is, 7, 8, 9 minutes long, and it's just
It's a roller coaster, man.
it is completely. And I love. I just saw a clip. There's a composer, Doug. I forget exactly what he calls himself, but his YouTube is the Daily Doug, and he's a composer, and he does reaction videos where fans will. So he just did You Enjoy Myself Friday, and he did a really classic live version of it. And he, absolutely loved it. But before he plays it, he plays a clip of Trey being interviewed, talking about the origin of that song. And he and Fishman are in Italy, and they're just there for like a handful of months, and just sitting around playing music. And that's where he wrote a lot of the parts to what would become that song. And there's a portion of that interview where they're hanging out with this Italian guy that barely speaks English.
Yeah.
And at one point, Trey and Fishman are walking down the street, and this guy is in the middle of them with his arms around either of them, and he goes, "Hey, when I hang out, you enjoy myself." And they're like, "That's gonna be the name of it,"
I had no idea.
Yeah. But anyway, so
I thought you were gonna say like, "What's your crazy time?" I thought you were gonna go into that.
yeah.
I did not expect that part.
So I find out it's a live album, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I find out it's like a bunch of shows. It's like all of these shows from Fall Tour '94 that they selected and put together. And it's like, well, he finally put out a live one, and it's not a show. It's piecemeal, which whatever.
Snippets, yeah.
So I for this I looked it up. So each of them on their own reviewed all of the Fall Tour '94 shows and made a list of favorites. And then they took the 4 lists of favorites and put it together, and it was 560 performances. And from there, they whittled it down to 30 and then whittled it down to however many songs want. But I was like, fuck, what a process. 560?
Yeah.
And what's the average length of those performances? But anyway,
Like, how many shows were even on that tour?
well, back then they were touring a lot. You know,
Yeah.
like they would do in the early mid 90s, they would do like 150 shows a year, you know. Which, you know, doesn't if a year's 365 days, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's also, I think it's exclusively bus travel too.
Yeah.
So, and heavy on the party factor.
That's a Major League Baseball season,
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I suppose that the biggest surprise was for me, I'd always thought that you were kind of like, I could take them or leave them with Phish. You know, like I've thought that you've always preferred Panic, and Phish has kind of been like an afterthought. I didn't know that you like really dug them for a portion.
No, and I still dig them. I think perhaps when you and I first met, I was kind of on a
Panic bender.
more of a Panic run there at that point, because I feel like there was a time in like the mid 2000s where I went to some Phish shows and just didn't enjoy it.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I went, and I think there were a couple things going on. I think I'd maybe gone over the deep end and saw too many Phish shows and not saw enough other music. So I think that was partly my fault. I think also that was back when Trey was kind of off his rocker for a little bit.
Well, that was the 2000, 2004 is kind of the beginning of the end, you know, so to speak, for that chapter.
Yeah, and I think that I also, you know, because I saw some show at Alpine Valley where like he could barely stand up on stage.
No shit.
Yeah,
Wow.
like tripped over his own guitar cord.
Wow.
And like, I mean, they were still sounded pretty damn good, but
All things considered,
you could still kind of tell a little bit. You're like, he's fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for me, I just kind of, when you and I first started hanging out, you know, 10, 11 years ago, I think I just wasn't listening to them quite as much, and I was definitely like kind of like finding other avenues for live music and stuff like that. And I think Panic just kind of found me at the time when I had become a little bit disillusioned with some of the scenes at Phish shows and stuff like that. I felt like the crowd at Panic shows were just a little bit different. You know what I mean? And
a little more chill, a little less judgy, perhaps.
Yeah, and just a little bit more into the music than perhaps, you know. I think there was definitely a point at Phish shows where people weren't just going there to listen to music or like to kind of just have, you know, fun and stuff like that. Like they were going because it's like, man, I'm just gonna score all the Molly I can. And just fucking take it until my face melts off.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's always gonna have its place at concerts and stuff. But you know, at the same time, it's like, do I really want to be around people that are so fucked up they don't even know what's going on? Like,
no. I was driving to the movie with my son yesterday, and I'm on shuffle, and this track called Some Sing, like something, but instead of thing, it's sing, by STS9 from their Artifact album came on. And it is a really fucking ripping track. I mean, if you want to like talk about like spaced out, like wild. My ex and I went to Wakarusa for the first 4 years that it was around, and it kind of, I think we both unspoken expected it to be an annual thing, and then they moved it to Arkansas, and it's kind of like, well, all right.
Yeah.
But one year, STS9, have you ever seen them?
I've never seen Soundtrap, no.
They headlined Sunday night. So we're up there. We never could get away for Thursday. So we'd get there Friday. We'd do our thing Friday, Saturday. This particular year, we packed up all of our shit and came home Sunday morning / midday because I had a hockey game. I used to play hockey on Sunday nights. So I went and played hockey, and it was whatever, a 7 o'clock or an 8 o'clock puck drop. So play, shower, get in the car, go back up, still have the wristband on, go in for Sound Tribe, and I am stone cold sober. And they take the stage, and like I see that we got pretty close. I mean, like 3-4 rows from the stage, and as the crowd's filling in behind us, I'm just seeing fucking people in these completely batshit costumes. Like somebody's got a fucking giant toucan head, and somebody over here's dressed like the Lorax, and these 3 chicks over here are I don't even know. And then lots of people have like these totems, these big fucking sticks with like puppets or whatever their thing is, and that's their deal. They just stand there. And so I was like, this is fucking banana. And then they take
It's a nightmare for even Jim Henson at this point.
Yeah. So they take the stage, and I didn't realize, I mean, I knew that their sound was like a very, very broad reach, kind of within this specific, subset of the jam band genre. But I didn't realize that not only are they all like really good musicians, but they all also have laptops. So they're all, doing it, and they can get in here and like do some funky shit. And I was like, that's like playing and singing at the same time. It's fucking hard to do. But anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed that set. It was completely bananas, and I mean, I was sober the whole time. I didn't party, I didn't drink, I didn't do it because we've packed up camp and taken it home, and we've got to get in the car and get out of there. But it was like that, that kind of level of sobriety, and the experience is so intense that it's kind of like, did I take some drugs? I feel like it. And so I just was like, well, I mean, that was many years ago. Like, so I was like, wow, that was really wild. So a couple of years go by, and they're playing Liberty Hall in Lawrence. And I was like, I'm going, and I'm going to go. It was like a Tuesday or a Thursday, and I was like, I'm going to go solo. I'll just have a couple beers, and then I'll drive home after the show. And
Liberty Hall is great, too.
Yeah.
I saw Ween there.
Nice. What a venue to see them.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm early, which means, and I'm, I'm on the floor, like front and center. I've claimed my spot. I don't have anybody, if I got to pee or get a beer, I don't have anybody to save my space. So I'm just kind of camped out there.
Hunkered down.
Yeah. And eventually, and it was an all ages show, as many at Liberty are. Eventually the crowd shows up, and by the time they take the stage, I'm fucking surrounded by lots and lots of young people. And the show was cool, but it became one of these deals where so much disrespect for my space kind of overtook my ability to enjoy the show. So I was more interested in like protecting my real estate.
Get off my lawn.
And a lot of it was just passersby trying to get to wherever they're going. But I remember, and this is literally the most standout memory of the whole show, is that I remember looking over, and this little pocket of kids have a cigarette pack cellophane, and it's full of Molly, or whatever. It's got a bunch of Molly. What I'm assuming it's Molly, because I see a couple of them, fucking gumming it. And I remember looking over in the peak of one of their jams, and it's like the kid that's holding it is not doing an A+ job at standing, and somebody else is like kind of leaning on him, making his job of standing and holding the Molly even harder. And there's like just another kid that he can't get his fucking pinky into this, and they're just like falling all over themselves. And I was just like, oh my God, where am I? This is bananas.
Sounds like they were in, what do you call that? K-hole. They were in, what's the...
Ketamine?
Ketamine, yeah.
I don't know. I just assumed it was Molly. I never asked. But I was like, fuck, that is this fucking sight right there. But anyway, we did eventually wind up seeing a pair of Phish shows together. And it's super weird to me that was fucking 4 years ago. I mean,
It was 3 years ago.
and was it 19?
Yeah, it was June 2019.
Okay. And
Some terrible hockey team won the
know.
NHL championship.
Yeah. Duncan Keith retired today.
I don't even know who that is.
He was a Blackhawk for a lot of his career. He in the 2010, whenever the first cup that the Hawks won, in their current, in the whatever, it was Hawks Flyers, and it went six. The final went 6 or 7 games. It was a very, very physical series. I mean, the Flyers have notoriously been a physical franchise for their entire existence, and this particular pocket of Hawks, that was a very physical team too. Duncan Keith took a slap shot to the mouth and 7 teeth. That's why I keep calling, because his nickname after that was Duncan Teeth. I mean, just a fucking confetti of teeth onto the ice, and he, went to the locker room, and I don't know, man, like start of the next period, he's out there for a shift, just like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like, but so not one of, there's plenty of other Blackhawks that I've hated a lot more than him. So anyway, but yeah, that was really wild. I remember, if it was a one-on-one message or a family group, I don't remember, but my sister that lives in Chicago texted the next day, and she's like, wait a minute, so you're at a Phish show in St. Louis watching the Blues win the Stanley Cup? I was like, yeah. And she's like, that's maybe the most Blair Johnson thing I've ever heard in my life.
I just remember sitting there watching the first set. Was it the second night of the show? And we're watching the first set, and I keep, you're checking your phone, you're checking the scores, and then finally, I remember, like, we knew intermission was going to happen soon, and you're like, the third period's about to start. I gotta go. And you went down, and I think I watched the rest of the first set, and I was kind of watching it on my, the scores on my phone a little bit too. And the band knew, and I think they ended the set at with 8 to 10 minutes left in the third quarter, because they knew. They're like, man, are we gonna keep playing when they're literally half the crowd was spilling out into the concourse to watch the end of that game, and they knew, and it's like, all right.
And they took a slightly extended intermission.
Yeah, that intermission was definitely long enough for everybody to watch the end of that game and to party and to, whatever. But they definitely came back out, and that was pretty cool of, seeing them. Even, I'm not a hockey fan, but, to see them kind of embrace that moment with the crowd and to play Gloria, and to, I remember there was somebody that threw a
fake cup,
inflatable cup up on stage, and
Trey set it up right and just let it stay there.
Yeah, and just they just kind of took that moment with that crowd and really went with it. And it was great, because they could have ignored it completely, and I think it'd be hard to, you know what I mean? But,
well, I mean, Trey is a big Flyers fan.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that.
In fact,
I'm not a hockey fan, Blair. We've been over this. I got kicked out of the first and only hockey game I've ever been to in my life. Within the first 5 minutes of the first period.
Oh, man.
So I wasn't allowed in United Center for 2 years.
Damn.
Legally, I think, or something like that.
Well,
for taking a beer in my pocket.
Wow. That's not a thing that we've been in trouble for at Starlight. We've been able to smuggle in.
You can't do that anymore. They've got metal detectors.
Well, but I think we smuggled in some plastic.
Possibly. I don't remember.
For sure. Anyway.
What, did we smuggle in a flask or something?
I think we smuggled in some peppermint schnapps.
Oh, did we? Okay.
And probably some Fireball. And it was for a Panic show. And
was that the same show that we got tickets for Bobby Hammond to come to? And he was so drunk at 4:00 he had to run off into the woods.
Yeah. Have you seen him?
I have not.
No.
I saw his buddy TJ recently. But
wow.
I haven't seen nor heard of the legend of Bobby in probably the last.
I think
4 or 5
about
years.
him sometimes. I think about Scotty.
I don't think about Scotty at all.
And then who was the long term day cook?
The one that threw me into the wall, Anthony.
Anthony. And then I think about was it Adam? He ended up being like a big time 9/11 Sandy Hook. All of it's fake.
Oh, really?
100%.
Wait, InfoWars or something?
I don't even, whatever. Just like, really? Okay.
Big Alex Jones podcast fan.
Probably. So that, when we, the first night that we were in St. Louis, and Clay was taking us around, I know I've told this story a bunch of times, but it was like everywhere we went. And how long did he work for you, by the way? 9 months?
No, maybe a little bit longer than that. Maybe 2 years.
Everywhere we went, he was like, "This is my former GM, George Clarke." Everybody, and it was just like, Jesus, dude. I mean,
just my name's George. Yeah, you remember by like the third or fourth place, I was just like, dude, you don't work for me anymore,
right?
And you haven't now for quite some time. Like, I don't understand this.
Oh man, I know.
Yeah, I can't believe that was the night he drove like a fucking F1 racer.
Do you remember our soundtrack?
No.
It was. I had never heard of this guy before this. I'll never forget him. Anderson .Paak.
That was the name I was trying to come up with earlier when I was talking about Tiny Desk Concert.
Okay.
I was trying to come up with Anderson .Paak.
And the track was "Do You Wanna Make It Better?" And he was just doing 90 down like side streets and blowing through stop signs.
Hey man, Anderson .Paak's like that music you bump when you're 16 and you just got your car because it's upbeat and it's fast and it's fun. I mean, you just hopefully don't do it when you're 30 some odd years old and drunk off your ass driving through the side streets of St. Louis.
And then we got back to, was that the same night that you guys were like, "Come on, let's jump in the pool"? I was like, "I'm not jumping in the pool."
That was the same night we went swimming.
And then you guys jumped in the pool, and you're like, "Fuck, that was so cold." And I was like, "That's what I was trying to tell you." And then he came.
It was the middle of June.
Not enough time for it to have been hot long enough for the water to be warm. Anyway, he came. He tried to come down the stairs a little too quickly.
I mean, he slid down the stairs like a beached whale. And
a lubed up beached whale.
Yeah. It's like if you took a whale and threw it on a slip and slide down a set of stairs. It kind of sounded like that when he hit the wall.
Yep. And it was like we're staying at his mom's place, and we knew that his mom was home, but I hadn't like no evidence that mom was present until that happened.
Yeah, we never saw her, and then we were just like in the basement. It was like the basement of that house was kind of like it had its own kitchenette and everything, and like. So it was kind of like its own apartment, like not heard or seen or look at the mom, but we'd been on a show all night. Clay slides down the stairs, hits the wall, and then all of a sudden you just hear this, "Clay, are you okay?" Right. And we were just, I'm dying laughing at this point. Like, I feel bad for him because I'm like, at first I'm like, "Are you okay?" But then once you could tell he was okay, it's like, now I just gotta laugh,
right? And now when I think about that whole thing, and it's not, it wasn't this way, but this is what I think of. I think about his mom being there, but never really seeing her until he goes down the stairs like that, and then her hollering, and the where I go with it is Wedding Crashers, the Will Ferrell, "Mom, meatloaf."
We still never saw his mom.
No, I don't think we did.
We never once saw or spoke to his mom. We just heard her from like a room that we didn't even know existed. You know what I mean?
We were told at some point like what her work schedule was. It's like she gets off and then she'll be home, but then she'll be gone. And it was like, I mean,
we stayed at that house for like 2.5 days and never once saw her.
I was like, does she really exist?
I mean, it's just some computer generated program.
Yeah.
Where you just hit a button or,
like the old Ferris Bueller cough.
Exactly.
Yeah. 9 times.
So.
Well, man, I know you got a gal and a little boy to get home to, so we should get you out of here. But I also know that you're a busy dude with not too many actual legit days off. So when you committed and then actually showed up and did this, the time offering does not go unnoticed. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. Never really done a podcast. I've been on the radio or done some spots before and done interviews and stuff like that. But I've never really sat around and shot the shit on a microphone before. Which is
kind
of nice. It's a little bit freer, and I can kind of say what I want to say.
Exactly. And it's a very tough thing to distill the essence of, because a lot of people are like, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, why not? Well, I don't want to be recorded. I don't know what to say. I won't be interesting. And it's like, when I say it's chill and it's a low key BS session, it doesn't convey the message. People are still like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, bro, we're just going to throw in some headphones in my basement and talk about music that we've listened to over the course of the last 30 years. So it's chill. Just come do it. It's fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything you want to plug? You want to plug the joint? Plug anything personal of yours?
No, not really.
No. Make sure you support your local peaches farmer.
Yeah, everybody needs some peaches, man.
So you've done you brought the quirks. I know you've had a little White Claw phase. You had a Casamigos phase. What's wet in your whistle these days? Does it just depend on the day and the circumstances, or?
Honestly, I don't. It's probably mainly seltzers right now, just because I don't go out very much anymore with the kid and stuff. So it's just a couple seltzers, or Casamigos or two, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't have a thing.
I don't get after it with Rumplements like I did 10 years ago when you and I hung out.
Dude, you don't have Tullamore Dew and Malort on your nightstand?
No.
Man, so in the small window of time that we worked together, I lived here for the whole time, but there was one night that, for what because we would seldom actually be
off work at the same time,
in the building at the same time, but every once in a while. And there was a night where way too much Rumplements.
You and I got after it one night, and I think you ended up like face down in your yard or something. You told me.
I ended up on the sidewalk.
Yeah,
and it was
like snowing outside. It
was super cold, but I woke up in all of my chef stuff and my baseball cap and my clogs on the sidewalk, like, oh my God, at like 4. The many things that could have happened. Thankfully, nothing did. I might have, knocked the noggin and lost a few memories. But should have been Christmas.
I think you and I went on a Waldo pub crawl that night.
We did?
Yeah, I think so.
And then back to lose? Probably,
yeah. That's usually how it would happen.
Why?
Like,
why is there not just an autopilot switch that's like, hey, that's probably enough drinks? Like, it's always got to, not anymore, but I mean, for a time, it always had to go to the, through the wardrobe closet into Narnia and lose somebody along the way and just can't find your way home. I mean, Jesus.
I think that's why for a long time, I think, like, your ex used to come in to lose to eat, and she'd sit down, and I could just feel her staring at me.
For real?
I was like, oh, man. Like, does she want to say hi to me? Or is she still mad about that time?
Well, I mean, thankfully, your gift of chips for the kids
won her over time.
Yeah, eventually. So.
When in doubt, kiss up to the person that matters.
Right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I think that's how I got through most of high school.
Right. I know I didn't turn in the essay, but your outfit is really nice. All right, man. Thank you so much. I'll fire this your way when it's up and out. And if you happen to come across anybody you think would be a good candidate to sit in that chair, please let me know, because I only know so many people, and you know a lot more than I do. and I'd love to keep booking guests. So
Yeah.
keep me in mind.
Let me know. I'll always come and sit and listen to somebody else and just drink beers on the couch. Or something.
There you go. All right, man.
I
Thanks.
can get away for the night. Wait, what?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. Later.